Caleb here at the Rosa Stringworks Workshop. Today we've got this 50s Gibson in, and it's in need of some help. It's really gonna need some work, mostly on the inside. This one's a little bit of a sentimental guitar, and the outside, as rough as it is, we're gonna leave mostly as is. I think this has been in the family since it was new. We're really gonna be working mostly on the structural part of this guitar. There's some little funny things about this guitar I'm going to show you here in a minute, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to be starting with. So I'm going to set it down and bring the camera around. So there we're looking in the sound hole, and you can see it's kind of dark, but there's a yardstick glued to the inside of this guitar. Now I believe the story was that the owner at the time was a teacher, and these yardsticks were probably out of his classroom. We're gonna try and remove those, but we are going to try and save them the best we can, because it's kind of hard to beat the story of this was glued inside that guitar. But you might be wondering how we're gonna get in there. We're gonna take the back off. This guitar needs enough work on the inside, the loose braces, the top is bulged, a lot of excessive glue in there. We're gonna try to clean up, take those yardsticks out. Almost all the work we need to do to this guitar is on the inside. So we're gonna try to take the back off, and we're gonna try to be real careful on the outside when we do it, because we don't want it to be real obvious we did it. This is not gonna be the easiest guitar I've done, that's for sure. I guess I'm gonna start trying to get the back off. I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do in order to get the back off. So I've got a brand new blade on my X-Acto knife here. And what I'm going to do is very carefully begin to trace the line where the binding meets the body. I'm going to do it real light first, and maybe go back and do it a couple more times real light, and slowly, very slowly and carefully over time start taking some material out. This is going to take me some time. Once I get the X-Acto kind of started all the way around and get a nice line, I can start to heat up a knife and stick it in there and start actually popping this out, the back and the binding. That might be one of the bigger parts of this job, is getting this off clean and getting it back on clean. So I'm going to start tracing this line. If I make any big progress, I'll bring you back to show you what I got. It's probably worth mentioning that there's a lot of tedium here. I'm doing the same task repeatedly quite a bit. This is one of the reasons Jerry doesn't like taking the backs off of these things, because to do it clean takes an extreme amount of time and repetitiveness. And even still, even if I get this all the way off, there's no guarantee that this binding is going to come off in one piece. I'm going to be doing this for quite a while. Well, quite a while later, and I've actually got all the binding off in one piece. It was a lot of tedious work to get this off in one piece. Jerry said it's very rare to actually get it off in one piece. It was really difficult up around where it joins the neck. You can see right in here where there's something on both sides of it. It's kind of hard because you can't just pry it back because you're running into this. So what I actually did that helped quite a bit was I got the heat gun out, and I did get in behind it on this side, and I worked in front of it on this side. I got it pretty warm and just kind of wiggled it, and it finally kind of just came loose. So now that I've got the binding off this, I'm going to set it to the side somewhere where it's not going to get broken. And I've started heating up the bridge removal tool, but I'm only going to use it to heat up the knife to get underneath the top, so I can hopefully get the top off this pretty quick. Once it gets heated up, I'll bring you back and show you me trying to get this off. So I've got the heater just off camera. Right now it's heating up the tool I'm going to use to start prying this back off. As it gets warm, I pull it out, just work my way around. Luckily, where the binding came loose, right in this spot, there's kind of already a gap, so it's a good place to start. I might have to heat this up a couple of times, because it just helps loosen that glue up when it's warm. There's a few spots where it goes a little bit faster, and it usually does get real difficult from one spot, and then it all comes at once. Now that I'm around to the tail block, it's going to be a little bit difficult. It's trying to pull the seam between the pieces of the back. Really, really trying not to let it do that. in the camera filled up right before I got the back off, but here's the back. You can see it's a real mess. I've already started cleaning off some of the parts. This back brace was only held on by the glue along the side. I'm gonna have a lot of cleaning to do. You can see there's that yardstick and all this caked on glue I'm gonna have to scrape off. So I'm gonna get to work cleaning this up, and I'll bring you back if I get anything good done. Here's our first bit of notable progress. Got the first piece of yardstick off. I also had some of these metal pieces holding it, and one of them came out with it. The other one came out right there.
You can use that yardstick to measure your progress.
Ha! Well, now that it's out, there's all this glue that was underneath of it to clean up. Oh boy, right back to the fun. I told Jerry this, and it's becoming more and more evident the more glue I get off here. For as much glue as on this back, everything, I mean everything, is loose. There's that brace. You can see all the glue that got added just basically got added to the side. Nothing got added underneath. So for all the glue that they put in there, almost none of it helps anything. Well, I thought I'd bring you back to show you where I was at before I hauled it for the day. I've got a lot of glue off here, but there's still just so much on here. You can see how loose this brace actually was. It's just the glue they put on the side that is actually holding anything here. Well, I've made a lot of progress on this. There's still quite a bit of ways to go. Well, I just got the last brace off the back. So since I've got this brace off, I've been working on picking some of this glue off. You might be able to tell, I've gotten quite a bit of it off. And throughout here and in the back. But there's still a lot of glue. I've been doing a couple of things to help get this glue off. One of the things I've been doing is I've got a wet paper towel, warm water, and I'll kind of push that in. And sometimes that'll soften the glue, or sometimes I'll get some heat in and that'll soften the glue. It just helps me scrape it off a little easier. What I was really thinking while I was taking this apart was it's amazing this thing came in here with string tension, because so far everything but this brace has just basically fallen off. Glue that was just poured in here seems to be the only thing holding this all together. So we've decided we're going to replace these pieces that run the length. And I've just noticed that the ones on here aren't centered. I think we might try to do a better job next time. But we're going to just replace these because they just chip off, fall off. See, I just pulled this one off with no effort. So I'm going to go ahead and replace those. I haven't really decided what I was going to do here at the label with it. You can kind of see the label is on top of this one, and this one's just as loose as the other ones. So if I wanted to replace this, I'd have to find out a good way to take the label off without hurting anything, the label back on. I might ask Jerry about what we want to do here. But for now, I'm just back to chipping off glue. Well, you see, once I got all the braces off, I could start scraping a lot further distances, and it's starting to clean up. It still looks pretty ugly. I can especially see it on camera. But compared to the mess that was on there, we've come a long way. It's starting to feel kind of smooth. There's a couple of spots where there's still some glue. A lot of these spots, I think it's just stained the wood. There's still a couple spots, like right in here, where there's still glue, and I'm gonna have to scrape that off. So I'm gonna keep working on this, but I was just giving you a little update as to what it looks like. Well, here's our top. I've done quite a bit of cleaning on this. I think we're just about to the point in which we're not going to clean any more off. You can see it's still pretty stained in spots, but there's none of that extra glue that's really going to affect anything. Jerry actually is out of the shop today, but he left me some of this red spruce to make new braces if I thought it needed it. Some of these braces aren't too bad, still covered in glue. Like the center one, the longest one, is pretty bad. Covered in glue, broken in several spots. I haven't really decided whether I should just go the whole way and make the new ones, but I'm kind of leaning towards just making some new ones. That's probably what I'm going to end up doing. I am going to use the old ones as a guide on size, so I'll measure them up, get an idea how big they are, and then I can start working on some new braces for this guitar. Alright, so I'm going to get a good idea of what needs to be done, and I'll bring you back when I finally start making some progress. Well, as you can see, I've made a new brace. Here's the old one. It's kind of a mess. Let's see what color it should be on the outside and what color it is. That's from all the glue that's caked on there. So I think we're just gonna go with this new one. Pretty good. It's about the same size, very comparable. I think this is just a higher quality piece of wood. We should have a lot more luck with it, I think. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and just make the rest. At least this one. But I'll probably just end up making the other two as well. Definitely got enough wood here to do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get working on those. Well, it's almost looking like a guitar again. Now this is glued down. It's all just sitting on there dry. Starting to get quite a few parts made. I finished this brace and I've got all these made. I'm still gonna make another one of these for here to cover this crack. Like this one covers a crack there. So I'm going to make another one just like this to go in here. It's looking like it's going to be a guitar, as much as it may try not to be. I've got all my new braces cut. Some of them need a little bit more shaping to make sure they're all the same and I don't have any funny humps in them. But I've got the new braces cut. I've got both cleats for the cracks and to run all the way up the center. And those are cut and beveled on the sides. This is going to be the best this guitar's been for a long time. But that's the way it's looking. Awful clean now compared to when it came in. So I'm going to do a little bit more cleanup on these braces, making sure they're nice and uniform. I think before I glue this in, I want Jerry to take a look at it, just to make sure everything's right. So he's out today, so I'll probably have to wait until tomorrow. So once I get this kind of cleaned up, I'm going to start looking at the top of the guitar and getting it cleaned up. So looking at the inside and on the top of this guitar, here's the other piece of yardstick that needs to come out. You might be able to see this brace is broken. One of these is loose. This one here. I think this brace is broken. This brace is broken. We got a little bit to do here. A little bit compared to the back, but still quite a bit in general. I think we're going to replace this bridge pad as well. That's a tiny thing. We're probably going to get some Paduke to put in here and bring it all the way up to here and bring it down. Cover up these two fill spots. It'll look good. It'll sound better. It'll just overall work better. There's a little bit of glue that dripped off the back. It's on the top here. I'm gonna have to clean it off. Well, I actually just kind of broke this off here, so that came off pretty easy. It's becoming very evident how all these bulges came in here. You can feel one in here because of this looseness and the brokenness here. I'm gonna have to make sure this top gets flat when we go to glue everything back on. Can you see this piece up here? It looks like it's lifting a little bit along the top, but I'm not sure that it's lifting enough that it's going to be loose. No, not really. There's also quite a bit of crud still in here. And this silver paint kind of looking stuff. I'm really not sure what this is or why it's in here. But it sure does just look like silver paint. I think I need a little heat. This is not going to be the easiest to get out because of all the braces in the way. And actually this one's fairly loose. It might be better for me to just take it out, glue it back in later. I'm hoping that some of these braces fared a little better than the ones on the back, and they're not all just gonna fall out with a little bit of coercion. This yardstick sure isn't. I'm heating up my knife with the heat gun off camera. Just trying to get it under there to loosen up the glue, and it is definitely loosening the glue. See, now I'm thinking whatever the silver stuff is the glue, because it looks like I just pulled some out. Some kind of epoxy maybe. Got it good and hot that time. There, it's peeking out the other side. What makes it real difficult is the sides are in my way, so I can't really get my hands in a good place to get under this thing. So I can get some better placement. I think I could get it a little further, but doing the best with what I got. There we go. Alright, now I'm real confused as to what this silver is. Not on the back of this. It's definitely not the adhesive used. Pulled up some of the wood fiber with it. Not a whole lot. Most of the thickness here is glue, but I really don't know what this silver is. I can probably get this cleaned up, but I'm glad to have gotten the last piece of yardstick out of there. It is a yardstick guitar no more. So a little piece of this perf was loose, so I went ahead and glued it and then got this clothespin on it just to kind of clamp it up. But I've started working on getting the bridge plate out. I've already got the nut and the washer off of these two screws. It's sitting aside. So now I'm just working on getting underneath of it. There we go. It's barely glued on there anyway. As I was cleaning up a little bit, I noticed it was loose here. I actually got the knife underneath of it. It's pretty loose, and then I thought to check the other side, and it's just as loose. It's loose back here. Looks like we got a loose spot here. Oh yeah, whole thing is loose. It's just a wonder that this thing came in here with string tension. It's a wonder that it didn't just take one good tap for this thing to crumble. I think the best thing to do is try to pry them off so we can glue them back down with some new glue. Well, as I say that, looking at this, looks like this is loose. Yeah. It's looking to me like this is going to need to just be all pulled off and put back on just like we did on the back. Luckily, these braces aren't as messed up as the ones on the back, so we should just be able to use these right back in here. That's still quite a bit of work though. Well, I've been cleaning on this for a while. I got quite a few more braces to come off. I got the big X to come all the way out. Of course, it's all in one piece. You can see here. I've been working on cleaning up little bits of glue and working this filler down flat. It's working out. It's getting there. There's still got this silver paint. It kind of scrapes off. But I really just thought I'd give you an idea where I'm at. Might want to start looking at the bridge plate for this. I think before I do that, we're probably going to glue up the back. But we are going to put a new bridge plate in here, a new Paduk bridge plate. It's probably going to come up to here, and once it can come down and cover these holes. So I want to also make sure that I get all this filler flat if we're going to cover it with Paduk, so that it sits flat against the body. It would be nice to be able to glue the bridge plate in when we re-glue all the braces back in. That way we know it's flat, we're pressed up against it. Would work really well if we could get it done that way. Anyway, I'm going to keep going, cleaning this up. Making some progress. just saw me glue this all up until the camera died. I finished it up. Everything's glued down. All the braces. I even got these cleats for the cracks glued down. So I'm going to set this to the side and go back to working on the top of the guitar. Got a few things to do before I'm ready to do any glue on it. So with the back set aside, I started working on the top, and the first thing I did was, once I got the X out, it was broken on both sides, so I've gone ahead and clamped that up, getting that glued back together so it'll be one solid piece, can go back in real easy. I've also started working on a new bridge pad, and this one's much bigger than the old one. It's also a little thicker, and it's going to be a lot harder because it's the Paduke. We're really going to need that extra size because of the bulge that's being pulled in this. That's really going to help flatten this top out, this new bridge pad. So I'm pretty sure I've got my lines pretty close. It's actually going to go in this way. You can kind of see where this brace, and it should cover up these two fill spots as well. That's the idea. Well, that's what it looks like with our new bridge pad in there. It's not glued in, it's just put in there in place, and it's fitting pretty well. So I finally found the reason for the yardstick in the top. There is, right along here, a crack. And I didn't notice until I started trying to clean up this perf, and I was trying to make sure the top was flat while I was cleaning this up, and I felt it move. So I am going to go ahead and make a cleat to go in here, match the shape a little bit better. You know, only cover what I need to, don't add anything extra. But I am going to go ahead and cleat this crack. Have it ready for when we start gluing this up, we can glue that cleat in it as well. But I have been cleaning for a while. You can see there's quite a bit less silver paint. Went ahead and glued up this side where it was coming off. So I'm going to get to making a cleat, and then I'm going to go back to cleaning. Well, I'm just about ready to start gluing on the top. You can see I've got the bridge pad already clamped in. It's not glued in. I'm actually clamping it in to kind of just get some downward pressure on the top to hopefully try to flatten it out. The first thing I am going to glue in is the big X bracing, because it really will, once it's clamped in, flatten out the top. That way as I go out, everything should be clamping to flat. I think it's going to work well for me, so I'm just going to get to gluing this.
Here's old JR to give it a try. Well, old Bill is really getting up there, but his music's as fresh as can be. One day he'll pick up in heaven, then we'll all hear that mandolin ring. So next time you're out in the evening, look and see if that old moon is blue. If it is, you'll know Bill is happy. He'll be picking some old bluegrass tunes guitar. Hear that guitar ring, don't you love to hear Bill sing? That old bluegrass sound makes me smile. And while I'm on this earth, I'm gonna pick for all I'm worth before I'm picking in that sweet by and by banjo. Did you hear that banjo ring? Don't you love to hear Bill sing? That old bluegrass sound makes me smile. And while I'm on this earth, I'm gonna pick for all I'm worth before I'm picking in that sweet by and by fiddle.
Well, I've got them all glued up. It looks like I've used quite a few of these bar clamps. That's because I used all of them. We should be well clamped. Now that this is where it's at, I'm going to set it to the side and give it some time to dry. Well, you can see I pulled this guitar out of the clamp, and I thought I was all done gluing these braces in, but the one brace that wasn't loose when I was putting glue in has popped up on this side. So I'm going to have to get it out, glue it back in, and get it all clamped up again. Shouldn't be too difficult to get this one out though. None of them were all that difficult. Just like that. While the top is drying again, I'm gonna work on trying to get these pieces of filler out. Whatever it is they used. I think we're gonna try to fill these with real wood. It should look a little better.
Bass. Did you hear those fiddles ring? Don't you love to hear Bill sing? That old bluegrass sound makes me smile. And Papa is certainly gonna pick for all I'm worth before I'm picking in that sweet by and by.
Well, you just saw me glue the back cleats on for these holes we filled. What we did was we used these punches to punch out some thin pieces of maple to use as plugs on this side. We did here, here, and here. But this one already had the cleat on the back, so I just glued and clamped the plug in on the bottom two. I went ahead and super glued the plugs in so they wouldn't move. Then I used the kind of cleats on the inside and used the regular tight bond and got them clamped in so they're going to hold real well. And I think it's going to look a lot better than that mess of filler they used. So I've got these all glued in, they clamped overnight, and I shaved them down with the round razor blade. So they're all pretty level. What I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to coat them in this amber shellac, and so long as I don't get it on there too thick, I think the color should be pretty close. Well, I don't remember where I left off last on this guitar, but I'm going to kind of cover what I've done the last couple steps. After taking the top out of the clamp, the one brace that wasn't loose had come up in the corner, so it got glued back down. I went ahead and put the nuts and the washers back on the screws for the bridge. Not to change that at all, not worth messing with. We filled the holes on the back. I've covered those in the amber shellac. I made cleats for the inside of the back where we filled those holes. I've also shaved down the two bigger braces a little bit more shaping. They're a little better this way. I'm starting to look at putting the back on it. Now when I do put the back on it, I'm going to start by putting glue only up to about here and here, because that way I can get the back lined up really well. And when I get to the front side, the neck side, I'm going to have to worry about making sure the neck angle is right, because how I glue the back on can affect the neck angle. You can kind of see it move here. Here you can see the neck sits still and the body moves. So how I glue the back on can change the neck angle. So for less variables to worry about, I am just going to glue the lower bout first and then worry about the top next. I'm going to make sure I've got all the clamps out and ready to do that, and then I'm going to get to gluing. So sometimes you have to realize you made a mistake and back up. Right after I turned the camera off, I realized the whole back was crooked. I took it off, got it lined up a little better, and clamped it back on. The reason this clamp is on here is these edges were just kind of sticking out a little far, so it might make it a little easier to line it up in the future if I leave it clamped up while this dries a little bit. So the lower butts had quite a while to dry. I'm actually taking a little advice from a comment I saw in one of Jerry's videos. I think it was a Gibson J185 video where he had taken the back off and he was talking about making sure the neck was set right, putting the back on. And somebody had commented, why don't you take a straight bar, clamp it to the neck, and then put a shim underneath your bar at the bridge, and then you'll know that you have the right angle. And that's what I've done, and it looks like it's working out, because I can take a straight edge and actually run it and check what clearance I have. And it's looking pretty good. This way, when I flip the guitar over, it should keep this angle. It sits flat on the fretboard all the way up about here where the fretboard actually dives down like it's supposed to, and then it's on that saddle, so when I flip it over we know that the neck angle is right now. All I have to do is get this lined up to the best of my ability, and actually when I press in on this side and kind of push on the top on this side just a little, the ledge looks really good all the way up to about here, and that's where the top is sticking out a little too far from our little bit of neck resetting. And it's not a whole lot too far, but it is sticking out. Well, this old Gibson's had a long time to dry, so I've actually got it all unclamped, and I've been starting to take off this extra on the front. Because of the neck reset, functionally a neck reset, we've got a little bit of this overhang from the back. So basically I'm just going to clean it off to match just like the rest of it, so the binding will go back on and you'll never know that it was ever changed. So I've got the chisel knocking it off a little at a time. I did check the neck angle before I started shaving some of this off. It's pretty darn close. I think that clamping the bar to the neck worked pretty well. There was a lot less trial and error. Well, I'm getting real close with this. I've actually got the binding to go in at the neck, and it fits fairly well. It's tight. I do have to like tap it in. I mean, it will come out. I have had this in and out, but it lines up fairly well right in that neck joint area. So I'm working on making sure I've got enough shelf in the rest of the top area. If I press it up against it, I can feel underneath, and there's still just a little bit of a lip, which means it needs to go this way just a little bit more. Because if I get into here, that lip goes away. This side is actually better. It's very close. Very close. Right here was the worst, so I'll take a little bit more off of here and try it again, and keep taking a little bit off and keep trying until I get it fitted just how I like it. Well, there we go. I've got all the binding glued on and taped up. I used this Formula 560 canopy glue. I started at the back and worked my way around. I did have to kind of stop at the waist here, and I had to use the heat gun to kind of push these edges in. They didn't really want to go back in where they were. But once I got that done, everything else seemed to work pretty well. So I'm going to set this aside and let it dry for a while. Make sure all this tape is good and pressed down. Well, now that I've got this old Gibson back together, I start looking at the neck and the fingerboard, and these frets have been worn, extremely worn. There's divots where the high E string goes all the way up through. So they're probably just gonna have to come out and get replaced. I've already got the nut off and the saddle out. The saddle was a little bit of a fight. It was real tight, but it was also so low that if I replace these frets, it needs replaced. So I guess what I'm gonna do is start trying to get these out of here.
My sweet Melinda of the mountain, I recall the day I met her on the mountain in the fall. Springtime, we were married in a church house. Our love grew the summer long. Little did I know, my sweet Melinda.
Well, you saw I got all the frets out. I went ahead and cleaned up the board a little bit. I didn't get all of the grooves out. And I don't really plan on taking all of the grooves out, but I did clean it up a little bit. I am going to start working on putting frets in here. I'm going to have to use this tool here to take the tang off of the frets so that it will overlap the binding. This way it knocks off that bit so that this overhangs and I can put it over top the binding and everything fits in really well. Otherwise that would run into the binding and wouldn't go into the slot very well. So once I've clipped that part, I take it down, I get my fret almost in the slot, cut it off the rest of the wire. I can trim the other side and it should fit in the slot. Alright, only like 19 or 20 times to go. Well, I've got all the frets in and I already kind of trimmed them. Some of them aren't, you know, as flush as some of the other ones, but they're in. When it came to these last couple, I kind of had to use this clamp thing to get it in there and press them down because you can't just go hitting them in. That being said, all the frets are in. I'm gonna start working on making this neck a little nicer to hold. Well, I've cleaned up the sides of the frets. They're feeling pretty good. I've gone ahead and got a new antler nut in here. It's marked out with my string spacing. I'm working on a saddle, but it's not quite ready to go in yet. I did go ahead and drill out the holes because we had that new bridge pad, and then took the reamer and just until the reamer poked through the other side. That's about the size hole that went in there. I've cleaned up the fretboard a little bit. It still needs some boiled linseed oil, and I may take some more out of it to try to get some of these grooves out. That's where we are, and that's what I'm doing next. I think I'm gonna oil the fretboard before I do anything else.
Once you're dear, she would be gone.
So I've got a saddle in there. It's not totally shaped yet. I still need to kind of work on the ends, but I want to make sure it's all good and pressed in there before I shave that down to match the bridge pretty much. I've got the beginnings of the slots cut down at the nut. I am going to start putting strings on it. This guitar did come in with 5 kind of yellowed bridge pins and 1 really white one, and if you notice, I've now got 6 yellow ones. Went ahead and fixed that so now they will match. Well, there's 2 on. I'm going to work on getting the heights right on these before I go on. It'll give me a rough idea where the rest of them will need to be. Well, I've got a lot of it done at this point. We're kind of in the finishing touches part. Some of these slots are a little deep on the nut because I've got the strings just about to the right height. So I'm taking a little bit off the top of the nut to make the slots not so deep so we don't have so much extra on here, and it'll help the tuning that way.
My sweet Melinda.
That's Pretty good. Well, I've got all 6 strings on it. Pretty sure we're getting close to having this thing done. I think I'm gonna go ahead and put some boiled linseed oil on the top, just to make sure it's clean and kind of conditions any of this wood that's been brought up to raw. It'll help keep the top looking good. Make sure it's in tune, and I think it's about time to play it. Well, this guitar's come a long way since it first arrived. If you remember, we started by taking the back off of this thing, and it was coated on the inside with glue. We cleaned out all that glue. We found a couple of yardsticks along the way. Every brace on the back was loose and coated with glue, so we just replaced the braces along the back. We cleaned up the ones on the front. There was a couple cracks in this thing. We've cleated those cracks. They should be good for a long time. We glued the back on here, made sure the neck was set where it should be. I had put the original binding back on, so we have to keep it original in that way. When this came in, it had 5 yellow bridge pins and 1 white one, brand new one. Went ahead and found a yellow one to match, so you'd never know that these weren't all the original ones. We put new frets in this because they were just worn down. Couldn't use them anymore. This was a real sentimental guitar, so we didn't do much to the outside of the instrument. I did go ahead and clean up the top with some boiled linseed oil. As well, we cleaned up the fretboard a little bit when we did the fretting, but we didn't get rid of all of the grooves because it is kind of a sentimental thing to see those grooves, really know how old this guitar is. With the new frets, we got a new antler nut and an antler saddle, and it's set up to play real well. It's pretty low, and it's a little bit different this time because I kind of ran my finger into the sander a little while ago, so I was looking for something a little easier to play because it's kind of hard to fret those high strings with a hurt finger. So I've kind of got it tuned open, make it a little easier for me to play. It's a little rattly with the down-tuned open D, but once you get it up to tune, all that rattle goes away. Sounds real good. I'm real happy with it. Feels real good. Sounds great. Hope you enjoyed watching this. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and a thumbs up would be much appreciated. Thanks for watching.